The race to get out of Sudan is down to the wire, with the window closing on a 3-day ceasefire. The first planes filled with elated yet traumatized evacuees have begun landing throughout Europe.
It's difficult to say how stomach-churning it was.
Vesna Vukovic, a Canadian teacher Global News spoke with on the weekend, just arrived in Egypt. That was a hard journey. We're filthy, hungry, and completely dehydrated, she says. She, along with other Canadians, spent 72 hours crammed into a bus after Global Affairs Canada informed them no air evacuations were possible. The Canadian government has since leaned on its allies and just today announced a pair of Canadian C-130s are preparing to enter Sudan.
The Canadian Armed Forces are ready to begin conducting evacuation flights and will do so once conditions on the ground permit.
Meanwhile, anarchy and chaos reign in Khartoum. Complicating matters even more, Ahmed Haroun, a leader of the regime deposed in 2019 who's wanted for war crimes, has escaped from jail.
And now the international community is rushing to save itself and leaving the Sudanese people in the hands of these warring sides.
Calls from the international community for an end to the fighting have been ignored, leaving Sudan on the brink of civil war.
A humanitarian crisis is in the offing in front of our eyes, and only a combined United Nations African Union intervention would help stave off a crisis.
Neighboring countries have already seen tens of thousands of Sudanese refugees cross their borders, and the conflict isn't even 2 weeks old. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
Our Ottawa Bureau Chief Mercedes Stephenson is with me. Mercedes, U.S. Special Forces went into Sudan 3 days ago. Where is Canada's military and our special forces?
Donna, the Canadian military says a task force has deployed to the nearby African country of Djibouti. It is comprised of both members of the elite and secretive Canadian Special Operations Forces and troops from 1st Canadian Division. They're tasked with evacuating Canadian citizens from Sudan. More troops are also en route from 3rd Royal Canadian Regiment based at CFB Petawawa. As Canada has finally arrived in the region in recent days, there is frustration in the Canadian national security and defense establishment over the speed at which political decisions have been made. Contrary to the government's assertion the conflict came out of left field, high-level national security sources say the government was warned about the deteriorating situation in Sudan and the possible need to evacuate 3 weeks ago through Canadian liaison officers working at U.S. Africa Command. Those sources say Canada had both the contingency plans and the necessary military equipment to pre-position for evacuations of our citizens at that time, as did many of our allies. Donna?
Okay, Mercedes Stephenson in Ottawa, thanks.